now. Our gospel today comes from the Gospel of Mark, and there we read, Jesus took with him Peter and James and John and led them up a high mountain apart by themselves. And he was transfigured before them, and his clothes became dazzling white, such as no one on earth could bleach them. And there appeared to them Elijah with Moses, who were talking with Jesus. And Peter said to Jesus, Rabbi, it's good for us to be here. Let us make 3 dwellings, one for you, one for Moses, one for Elijah. He didn't know what to say because they were terrified. Then a cloud overshadowed them, and from the cloud there came a voice, This is my Son, the beloved. Listen to him. Suddenly, when they looked around, they saw no one with them anymore, but only Jesus. As they were coming down the mountain, he ordered them to tell no one about what they had seen until the Son of Man had risen from the dead. Let us pray. Lord, may your words only be spoken and your words only heard. And we do ask this all for your love's precious sake. Amen. Please be seated. Well, in the church year, and the church actually has a calendar that has seasons, much like a secular calendar does. So in the church year, does anybody know what Sunday this is? Did you read that in your bulletin? Yes, very good. Good. You got it. That's exactly right. This is the last Sunday of the season of Epiphany. Epiphany is that season that comes right after Easter, right after Christmas, excuse me. It comes from the Greek word epiphaneo, and epi is a preposition upon. Phaneo means to shine. And so it's to shine upon. It's to be given revelation. And in the season of Epiphany, we let light shine upon who Jesus is. Through the stories about Jesus, through the things Jesus taught, we let light shine upon Jesus so we can see more clearly who Jesus is. And I hope that's happened in our last sermon series. I hope that as we looked at Jesus' commitment to everybody everywhere, as we look at Jesus' commitment to the welfare of all people, that you caught a new glimpse of who Jesus is, and that you found that as compelling as I did, and that in that you felt yourself called into a deeper relationship with Jesus, as I did, and whether it's Jesus as the Son of God, whether it's Jesus as fully divine, as I believe Jesus is, or whether you simply believe that Jesus is one of the most exceptional human beings that ever lived, as virtually everybody acknowledges. I hope that you felt in looking at this radical commitment Jesus had to all people, something drawing you deeper in to a relationship with Jesus, into that dream that Jesus had and Jesus shared with us. And so Epiphany culminates with this reading, the reading about the Transfiguration, a familiar story, where now it's like all the gloves are pulled off. We just see Jesus in all his glory. So Epiphany culminates in this glorious image of Jesus. And then that propels us into the next season of the church year, which is Lent. That's exactly right. And Lent is this series where we really are invited to go deeper with Jesus. So having given a vision of Jesus that hopefully has fanned the flames of our heart to want to know more about Jesus, to participate more fully in the work of Jesus in the world, Lent is this season that's designed to give us occasion to do just that, to capitalize on this epiphany we've just had and to go deeper with it. So what I want to talk about this morning is how we make the most of Lent, and then why that's so important, okay? So how we make the most of Lent. First, it starts with Ash Wednesday. And Ash Wednesday, frankly, is not one of our better attended services, but Ash Wednesday is an important service. And it sets the setting for everything that comes after that. And it does that by asking us to take a moral inventory of our lives, a spiritual inventory of our lives. It does that by bringing us up against our own mortality, our own limits. And it helps us realize anew how much, frankly, we all need help. And whether we acknowledge that very often or not, you need help, and I sure need help. And we need help from God, and we need help from a community, and we need help from the people around us. And nobody gets very far without those things, simple truth. So Ash Wednesday is an important service, sets the stage for everything that comes after it. And Ash Wednesday itself is a fast day. And so in the Episcopal Church, 2 days are set apart as fast days, only 2. And that's it's Ash Wednesday and Good Friday. And again, it's meant to capture something of the character of those days and bring us up against our own limits, our own finitude. When we're hungry, again, we realize something important about who and what we are, about our limits. And so there are a variety of ways to fast. Personally, I'll fast all of Ash Wednesday. My last meal will be dinner on Tuesday, and my next meal will be breakfast on Thursday. But you can skip just lunch, skip just breakfast. You can fast solid food and drink. If you drink fruit juice, for instance, you won't have much lag in energy. If you drink enough fruit juice, you won't even have any caloric deficit. I mean, so there's ways to fast where you'll still be hungry, you'll still miss something, but it'll keep you going. So I don't know if you've ever fasted before, but if you haven't, I'd suggest you give it a try. People down through the ages have found this to be a very powerful experience in deepening the quality of people's lives, and you might find it to be that as well. The one thing I would say is if you've never fasted before, I would not necessarily start with going from Tuesday night to Thursday morning without eating. And if you did do that, you should check with a doctor or whoever before you actually do that, okay? So that's Wednesday, Ash Wednesday, and then that leads us into Lent. And in Lent, we typically do two things. We typically give something up, and we typically take something on. The reason that we give something up is, frankly, so that we can take something on. Because if there's one thing I know about you, it's that your lives are full up, right? I mean, my life is full up. And so the only way I can take something on is if I give something up. And even if I don't do that intentionally, when I take anything on now, something drops off my radar because there just is not enough time in my life to add anything with something, even unconsciously, not getting done. If I start doing something else, there's going to be something I'm not going to do because there's just not time to add another thing. And so in Lent, because we take this moral inventory, because we stand before God, because we take a good hard look at ourselves, at our priorities, what's important. We ask for God's help. We ask for God's insight in these things. Because we look at the life of Jesus, what Jesus taught, how Jesus lived. We put our life sort of up against it, see the differences between the two, see the difference he made, see the difference we failed to make, or see the difference we're making because we are living like Jesus and we want to do more of that. And this becomes the basis by which we decide what things we want to stop doing. And that's what we give up, things that we stop doing, and what things we want to start doing, things that will help us be more like Jesus, that help us be more loving. So when we look at our lives, life it's a lot like a ship. You know, a ship just from being in the water by the process of accretion picks up barnacles, right? You leave a ship in the water, it's going to pick up barnacles. Those barnacles are going to slow a ship down, eventually going to sink a ship and wreck it, unless you pause every now and then and clean the hull, get those barnacles off the hull. Your life and my life, we pick up barnacles. It just comes naturally. It's just the way life is. It's part of being it's part of being not just a spiritual being, but an animal being, a physical being in a physical world. We pick up baggage. I pick up baggage. You pick up baggage. And at certain points, it's important that we just stop and recognize baggage for what it is, recognize barnacles for what they are, and say, hey, I'm going to give this up. And you're not even saying you're going to give this up for, forever. You're saying I'm going to give this up for 40 days. And you know, and I say this every year, and I know I sound like a broken record, and you're free to disagree with me, which I know you all know very, very well, and you do a good job of that. And actually, I appreciate that about you. I really do. But I ask everybody to give up alcohol for Lent. And just as a parish, all of us together, so we're not doing this, nobody's doing this alone, we're doing this together. Why would I do that? Because alcohol can mess with people's health. And anybody I've ever known who's given up alcohol for Lent always ends up more slender. If that's the only thing they give up, they're more slender at the end of Lent. They're not carrying the beer belly or whatever that they go into the season with, the start of it with, because alcohol can do so much damage in so many ways, and it's something that it just can happen so insidiously. And so I just say 40 days, all right, 40 days. And again, if you can't give it up for 40 days, just at least ask yourself why that's the case. What's there? Why does this thing have so much power over you that even for 40 days you can't go without it? Right? Something's there. Flesh out what that is. Think about that. Because for many people, alcohol is one of those things that drags them down and actually drags everybody around them down as well. And it might be, even if it's just 2 glasses of wine at the end of the day, at the end of the night, so that you basically go to sleep and you can't interact with anybody. The relational richness of having a family life is gone because somebody's in la-la zone and they can't appreciate it. And a whole lot more from there. So think of the things we give up. One of the things my wife gave up one year for Lent was anger. And, it's always an interesting thing. People, maturity levels attract each other. It's really true. People with actually some of the same characteristics attract each other. And Linda and I often comment that we're just both two very angry people. Or at least in our history, we've been two very angry people. It's not as evident in Linda always as it is in me, but it is there, or it has been there. And so, and I love my wife, and I love the relationship we had, and every year has been a good year. But I got to admit, that year where Linda said, I'm going to give up anger for Lent, and again, can I not be angry for the rest of my life? That doesn't even seem possible. But for a lot of people, it doesn't seem possible not to drink either. So can I just give, and so what they do is they say, I can go one day without drinking, and then one more day. Can you go one day without being angry? Can I go one day without being angry? Start putting those days together. Maybe we really can go a life without being angry in a destructive way. And so my wife gave it up for Lent, and she really did it. And I have to admit, it made a huge difference. And then she never, ever went back to angry like she was before. And if I were to tell you one of the most significant things in the development of our relationship in the last, I don't even know how many years it was, maybe 8 years, I'd tell you that was it. I mean, that was it, because just for a lot of reasons. So again, looking at life, things we want to give up, things we want to put behind. Some of you have a problem with overeating. I have a problem with overeating. I've been eating chocolate cake 3 times a day ever since last Sunday, and I mean big pieces of, just like stuck on chocolate cake. And for overeaters, so how would you, if you were really a food addict, it's not like alcohol, you can't give up food, right? And so one of the ways that Overeaters Anonymous defined overeating is giving up all white flours, all refined flours, and giving up white sugar. And so for Lent, what for many years I've done is I give up those 2 things. And if you want to talk about something that is really, really, really hard to do because it's in everything, try and do that. But see how much better you feel at the end of Lent if you do that. So again, it's looking at our lives, taking a hard look at our lives, saying, what's the stuff that's bogging us down? What's the stuff that's holding us back? What's the stuff I want to be free of? Oh, God, please free me from these things. And you have those things. I know you do. I have those things. Those things that we just say, oh, I so wish I'd be free of this. Lent is the season to begin to experience with life being free from those things. And then the other ones are just time sinks, things that just waste your time, waste my time. Might be watching sports. People tell me, I don't have any time, I can't do this. And then they tell me how much they watch sports, and I say, holy cow, how in the world? Now, sports are great. I love sports. Actually, I don't so much, but that's a flaw of mine, I know. But I understand people that do. But again, I wouldn't want to, like anything, I don't know that I want to devote that much time to anything that in the end ends up being maybe not the most meaningful of all things. Maybe it's social media. Maybe it's just dinner without this. What are things that are time sinks that keep you from what is really important? Let those things go. And it's only 40 days. You can do anything for 40 days, right? I can do anything for 40 days. So try it. Try it. And then when we give these things up, then we think, what are the things I want to take on? What are the things that I'm not doing that I've always wanted to do? And it might be something you want to do for years and years and years and years, and you just don't get around to it. Maybe this is the year you get around to it. Maybe this is the year I get around to it. Maybe it's in your studies this year. Maybe it's in talking to people, listening to people. Maybe you have a mentor. Maybe somebody has helped you identify something that would really be good if you learned how to do this. Really be good if I learned how to do this. Take that on for Lent for 40 days. See if you can build that into your life. And if you can begin to build that into your life, then you can pretty well be sure that that's going to start a habit that's going to continue beyond those 40 days. So again, go before God, say a prayer. God, what would you have me do? If nobody's up there, you won't hear a blessed thing. But if somebody's up there, somebody's out there, somebody's in here, what's that still small voice saying? What do you hear? What is it that if you did that one thing, if I did that one thing, quite frankly, you would be a better person? I'd be a better person. And you're all good, but we all got at least a little room for improvement, right? What's that one thing? Take it on. Because we gave something up, we freed up some time, we freed up some energy, take that thing on. And I'd suggest, being in church. The older I get, the more important I think this is. And as I look at lives, I just tell you, good decisions build on each other, and this is a good decision. And this will build on itself in every area of your life. And it's worth the investment. And I'd also commend to you our watch series where we look at Brene Brown's book, Braving the Wilderness. We're going to be brownies for the season of Lent. And in the old days at St. Matthew's, everybody, because we were a smaller church and it was easier in smaller churches, everybody would come together for a Lenten study. I mean, everybody. And it was fun because though we're a diverse group, we'd all have this little time where we'd all get to know each other, and it just made a fun time together. This is a great book. You will find it helpful. Whether you like everything, whether you agree with everything, you'll find some stuff in there that will be helpful to you. So love for you to join us for that. So why do we do these things? Last part, and then we're done. Why do we do these things? Well, we do these things not to become churchy people. We do these things not in hope of the pie in the sky by and by, but we really do these things for the only reason that really matters. And again, I know, broken record, but in the end, this is really all there is. We do this so that we will be more loving. That's why we do these things. And if these things keep us from being loving, then we're probably missing the point. Now, so the whole idea here is that we'll be more loving. And I was really struck in this last week. And I mean, just this last week, 3 people talked to me about how lonely they are. And one was a person at church, and the person just said, "You have no idea how lonely I am." And frankly, it took me back. I was shocked because this is a person who I think is very well connected, very social, very outgoing, involved in a bunch of things. And I was tempted to push back, "Oh, you have no idea how lonely I am." But then I looked at his eyes, and then I thought some of the circumstance, and I thought, no, he's telling me the truth. I need to hear this. I don't have any idea how lonely he is. And then he looked at me and said, "I don't have one friend at church." I said, "Oh, come on." He said, "No." He said, "I have acquaintances. But I don't have one friend." And in the old days, again, it's easier when it's a smaller church. Everybody knows each other. We all did life together. Everybody's involved, and we all had friends. But I guess it's gotten harder, and the thing is, how long can a church go on if people don't find friends there? I mean, all the good things that a church does, if we're not building quality relationships, none of the rest, that can't go on. I mean, how important is that? And then another one, I was out in the community, I was having lunch with the seminarian in our search for an assistant rector, a real sharp young lady. And we went to Burton's Grill. She was is a vegetarian. And so we went there because I hear they have good, Ben, who's not here this morning, but Ben told me they have a great superfood salad. Anyhow, we went there, and the waiter was a young guy named Kevin, and he's 26 years old. And I was in my collar and such, and as I always do, I said, "Hey, you probably know," at the end of the meal, paying the check, said, "Hey, you probably noticed I'm a priest." I said, "Anything I can pray for you for? If not, I don't want you to be uncomfortable, that's fine, but really, I thought anything I can pray for you for." And his eyes dropped to his feet. And he just takes a step a little closer to the table. And then he looks up, and his eyes have just sort of gone hollow, and he says, "I'm just so lonely." And again, this really takes me back. This is a tall, handsome young man standing there. He said, "This is the first time I've ever lived alone." He said, "I work all day, and I go home to empty walls, and eyes drop again, I'm lonely." And then he looks up and he says, "Will you please pray for me?" I said, "Oh, you have no idea. I'd love to pray for you." It can't just be praying, can it? Got to find excuses to go back there and eat again. Got to find excuses to run into him again, to build a relationship with him, and then, if possible, invite him here. Or maybe he will find a relationship, or maybe he will find a friend. And then the final one was my mother. And again, this one just surprised the heck out of me. Just really took me back. But I was talking with my mom, and she was talking about my dad. And she said, "I could almost do without the relationship." And what she's saying there, every relationship's messy. There's great stuff in every relationship. There's tough stuff in every relationship. And she's just saying, you know, the relationship had good and bad, and, you know, sometimes I could just be done with some of the hard part. Loved my dad, not saying anything bad, nothing whatsoever. For a lot of women who've always taken care of a man, there is a certain freedom of not having to take care, you know. But then she went on and she said, and this surprised me because I have never experienced my mother as a particularly affectionate person. So she said, but what I really miss is having somebody to hug me at the end of the day. She said, what I miss even more than that, I just miss having somebody to curl up with in bed at night. Just feeling somebody's back against mine. And then she added, and this again just took me completely by surprise. She looked at me again, eye to eye, and she said, I'd almost pay somebody for that. A lot of lonely people around us, friends. A lot of them. That's why this matters. Because this is how we get out of our own little worlds, start to see those people, start to care about them, and start to love them, and start to delight in them, like God loves and delights in them. So I do hope you'll make this a very holy Lent. Not to make you a more spiritual person, but to make you, to make me, a more loving person. Amen. Amen.